Hey everyone, welcome to the highlights from February 2024 from the Innovators Mindset podcast. And I'm gonna be honest, yeah, this has been a terrible start to the year for me. I've had injuries and really been struggling. And as many of you know, my dog passed away. It was weird because it was kind of known he was sick, but then he passed away quite abruptly. So I've been really thrown off, and I, I I feel guilty even saying this in the sense that my hope always when I do this podcast is to kind of lift people up to really kind of inspire ideas, highlight really amazing guests, and share different thinking on education that in hopes of elevating. But the reality of it is that we're not always good. And I'm not just talking about myself, I'm talking about everyone listening. And to kind of fake something that's not true is, I find, very disingenuous. And, I often think about a conversation I had with a, a mentor of mine, Kelly Wilkins. And she said to me, your biggest strength is your passion, but it's also your biggest weakness. And what she meant by that, and from my understanding anyway, is that it is the thing that, if you really love something, you can also be really hurt by that same thing. And so I wanted to share that with you, not to bring you down, not to, set a horrible tone for really incredible guests and hopefully some incredible insights that will help you, but to show you that, even though we see people and, often we see people smiling, having a good time, life happens. And it's part of the beauty, it's part of the sadness. And I feel blessed in the sense that how blessed am I to have a dog that passed away that I'm so destroyed by, because you don't always get those opportunities to truly love something that way. And so the reason I am struggling is because I have been really blessed, and to lose a blessing is a tough thing. But I hope one day I can kind of look back on these podcasts. I can look back on these things and be proud of them and say, hey, life happens. I always share this with you. As much as I hope to inspire educators, this is also a diary to my kids, and this is what's going on in my life right now. So I want to be authentic to you. It's really easy to show like, hey, we're at this conference, we're at this thing, and just kind of highlight all the good stuff and pretend nothing bad ever happens. But I'm not that guy, and I never will be. And so it's just never going to be fake with me. And I think that's something. As much as I'm a little bit embarrassed to not maybe lift you up here, I'm proud that I can say I've always stayed true, and I'd rather be passionate and be hurt than not to have that excitement for life. So I don't know if there's anything that I could share there that is inspiring, makes you think different. But I guess the whole premise of this is so many of you reach out to you, and I just want to say thanks, because this is part of life. As much as it sucks, it is what it is. But I know you can get way better stuff out of some really incredible guests and podcasts I recorded myself at a different time. But just thanks for being here, because I know your time is very valuable, as is everyone's in the world. So appreciate you taking some time to spend with me. I just want to share a little bit of who I am and kind of what I'm going through. But I hope that you'll find something of value. Welcome back to the Innovators Mindset podcast. My big thing is portfolios could be a way that we can really show what's the amazing things that are happening in school, but really develop kids and highlight them, but also help them find their strengths, what they really love through that process. So I don't know. I know that wasn't one of the questions. What do you think of that? Because that's what it's like. Don't say get rid of this, but don't offer a solution.
True.
Show me an opportunity. And I'm being a huge advocate of portfolio specifically. What do you think of that?
So, I pretty much that's what I've been advocating, I would say, for a very long time now. Like, even though I was teaching AP classes when I was in the classroom, I was even petitioning the College Board to not have my students have to take their AP English exam, because to me, that exam, as somebody who has a degree in English, that exam does not mirror whatsoever any English class that I took in
Mm.
college. And I was like, you know what? But if you let my students submit their portfolio of work for you, they'll pay the fee. You'll use whatever readers you have
Mm.
to determine whether or not they've met the criteria for a college level course. I just felt that it gave my students, their research paper in particular, and then the other work that they did in the class, just, I don't know, it showed their body of learning in a way that a single exam just can't. So, I
That's
mean,
what
as
you're
far as,
getting. That's what you're
yeah,
getting. That's what you're getting. One of those for doing that, because that is like I actually, unless I think a lot of times when we, especially, and it's going to make some people mad, especially when we specifically teach English, we almost teach some of our kids to write in a way that prepares them to write in college, but not necessarily to write in a way we'd want to read. If that makes sense. Do you know what I
sure.
mean? Like I don't want to. So I love all the people listening to this. I'm not a big dissertation reader,
Yeah,
right?
no,
But I like blogs.
me
Do you know
too.
what I mean? And so like, are we giving like a lot of more kids come out of school and they know how to write because they're English teachers, but they don't necessarily write in a way that they write after school if they don't go to college. Is that fair to say? Am I?
It is. And I think that I mean, as a writing teacher,
Yeah.
thinking about my role in developing skills for kids, I don't think I ever told my students they had to take my suggestions. I think I went into their work reading like a reader,
Love it.
giving them feedback as a reader, like, hey, you might consider this. It's a little confusing here. And if you are the author, you make your choices about what it stays, but just
Mhm.
be able to back up why you're keeping it the way that you are. If you're willfully breaking a lot of rules with the way you're writing, tell me why you're doing it. And I mean, authors break rules all the time, but I mean, it has to be intentional. You need to
Right.
know what you're doing and why you're doing it and what effect you're looking to get with it. And I think because I'm a writer myself,
Mhm.
I never wanted, like, I don't have the right to tell a kid what the
Right.
best writing looks like. Who am I? I
Yeah.
still kind of struggle with that a little bit. Like, even as a teacher, just because I teach English, just because I'm a writing coach, doesn't mean I know everything. And it doesn't mean my style of writing is for everybody. But what you just suggested is true too. I think the reason why my books do as well as they do is because they're practical. I'm
Mhm.
not writing a research dissertation. I'm writing ways that teachers will pick up the book, they'll read something, they'll be
Mhm.
able to implement it immediately. To
Yeah.
me, that's more meaningful.
And I know this sounds weird. It has to be like I wrote Innovator's Mindset specifically trying to write a book that I hadn't read in education, not necessarily the ideas, but the way I wrote it, more
Sure.
conversational, more kind of like joking around, stuff like that. Because you can have the best ideas in your book, but if I can't make it past the first 5 pages because I'm bored, then
Mm.
I'll never get the ideas. And I think, and I don't think that anyone that's listening to this is like, well, I really like the super academic. Great, that's awesome. And there's a lot of those opportunities, but I didn't think there was many in the other side. So I thought, hey, there's probably an audience that's being missed out here. Why did you feel the need to write this book? Like what problem do you feel this is solving for, principals specifically in your writing?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to use one of your words you just said, George. I love that you said thoughtful,
Mhm.
because a lot of thought went into this book. And I think I want to be incredibly transparent and say this has been a labor of love for almost 10 years. I'm not going to lie. Like, I knew that I am an educator who believes in the power of positivity. And you and I talked about the
Yeah.
difference between positivity and toxic positivity, right? But I
Right.
know that I come to the table with that mindset of like, I'm here to support all students. I'm here to support all the adults too. And at a very, very early on in my career, it's like, I want to write a book about just good things. Like,
Mhm.
what are all the good things we can do to help one another? That at the end of the day, I know are going to help our students. So, very thoughtful in the sense that over the last several years, Dottie Hall, who was one of my professors in our principalship program, we would meet together regularly, and she wanted to write a book, I wanted to write a book. We're like, let's do it
Mhm.
together. Let's put something together. Let's put something out there. And we met, this was maybe just like 2 or 3 years in, and we're just like, what is the reason? Like, why do we want to do this? And it's because we wanted to provide administrators like that glimmer of hope. Like, no matter where we are, no matter what time of, period we're in, there's still good out there. And we still have a really big job of educating all our kids.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that what we said, we would say, like, we want like a little shot in the arm. Like, you're doing what you need to be doing. Here's some very tangible ideas, some things that you can implement tomorrow based off reading this book. And we want you to feel good about it. We want you to enjoy your job and find that joy. And I think for me, after writing this now, as a principal during the pandemic, that relevancy is understanding what crisis is and knowing that we just can't stay away from it. It's going to happen. It's bound to happen. But when you put some of these systems in place, you're going to be able to get your staff through those moments together, get to the other side, not just like I don't believe in the notion of like we're just surviving. I want to be thriving as well. Right. And so that's important.
The thing that you said, and it was like kind of a little light bulb for me, is when you say what's the symbol? I'm gonna see how accurate this is. What is the symbol you think of when you think of positive? What's the first symbol?
I'm gonna go with plus sign.
Plus sign, right? And when you think of negative, mm-hmm. you think of
the minus sign.
Right. So a plus sign for me is about, I think this is the way both you and I see it, is about forward, right? It's not mm-hmm. about, I think even optimism and positivity, optimism is like a hope that things get better. Positivity for me is about an action to make things better. And so when you say that terminology, it is actually about finding ways, as you just beautifully articulated, not to just like make it through the day, but really to make this an incredible experience, not only for your staff and your students, but for yourself. Like I will tell you, as a principal is my favorite job ever in education. I love being a principal, and it wasn't because it was super easy, right?
Right.
Your answer makes me feel really validated, because one of the things we talked about was that a great principal has to be visionary. And the thing that we actually left it as the final pillar. And the reason we did that very explicitly is said, you cannot come into a new school and have a vision before you actually meet the people you're working with and who you serve, and know your resources and what you actually have access to. And the vision shouldn't be dependent upon what one person is implementing. It should be something that's created together. And so like a lot of times we say we want these visionary leaders who go in, have a vision for what they want, but then they don't know who they serve. And so that was why it was explicitly last. I don't know if you got a comment on that, because I saw you were pretty excited. I felt really validated with just your expression when I said it. That made me feel really
Absolutely.
good.
Well, because too often, even as superintendents, we espouse that when we're looking for principals, we want a visionary leader. Yeah. And we give that person the impression that it's incumbent upon them to go forth and cast said vision, and life just magically happens on that campus.
Yep.
And then they come back to our office and explain how nothing is going the way they, quote unquote, envisioned it.
Right.
And it's because their vision only included their perspective.
Right.
And so when you say that, as a district level leader, we have to be mindful and be careful about the things that we say and how we expect those things to be operationalized. But like you mentioned, good principals understand you are just that. Mm-hmm. You don't teach all of the curriculum. You don't attend all of the classrooms. You don't make all of the decisions. And so you have to bring those people to the table. Mm-hmm. And you have to ensure that what you see is a part of what they see, and vice versa. And then you collectively co-create, this ecosystem that allows that environment to thrive. And what I will tell you, go to any school that's considered to be a great school in any circumstance, any city or state, despite all of the other things that pundits may talk to you about, and they'll tell you that their principal gets it and them.
Right.
And that's where it starts.
So I think you'll like this analogy. I don't know if I mentioned this. I hate bringing up sports, but it's just, I know I see a lot of things through that light. I ref basketball, really high level basketball for a long time. And a great principal and a great referee, you don't notice them. That's what makes them great.
That's
If you
right.
keep noticing them, something's going wrong, right? If you keep yelling at the ref, the ref's not good, right?
Yeah, not good.
Right. So it's the games that you don't notice the ref. And I feel there's some connection there too, is that they put people in the position to play the game to the best of their abilities. And they kind of lead that too, right? But sometimes the ref's got to step in. Sometimes the principal's got to step in, right? And make sure things are, kind of going the way. But I always think about that, about how kind of, when you're yelling at the ref, it's like, oh, that's not a good ref, right? If you keep noticing what's going on with them, right? So tell us a little bit about the year with Griffin Spalding. Like, what's been some of the best things that have happened? Like, what's something that you're really proud of, that, your people have done, something that you've created, anything when you think of? I to be honest, I'm being selfish again. I just kind of like to hear about it because just so many really wonderful people that.
Well, I appreciate it. So I'll start with, in Griffin Spalding, we strive to ensure that all of our students are able to read, write, speak, and solve grade level text and material in every classroom. With that as the backdrop, I'm excited about our student support division. They were just given the award to be top district in the state of Georgia for innovative practices in supporting students, both academically and social emotionally. Mm-hmm. And what that means is that we're willing to try again for students and staff. That's not to say that we have all of the answers. That's simply to say that when we don't have an answer, we're going to try and find one. And the things that we're trying to implement has been working for our people.
I remember actually, like, I had to take a leave because I was so mentally exhausted and overwhelmed. And, you talked about your principal. I had a principal very similar, just was awesome and just incredible. And I didn't want to take the leave. It was like there's a stubbornness about it. And she said, you're not okay. Like, you need, just take some time and, you'll be fine. And we'll be able to cover you. Don't worry about it. But, like, you are not okay right now. And I felt, and, like, when I look back at that, and I actually remember writing about it, I had given everything in education to everyone else. And then I had nothing left for me. And to the point where I just was exhausted and I couldn't do it anymore. And I feel that sometimes, like, the stuff that we're talking about right now, is people will listen to this, they're like, oh, this kind of sounds selfish. I'm like, it's actually a little selfless in the sense that you better prepare yourself to, like, I find I have more energy to help others when I make sure that I carve out time for myself. Would you say do you feel that same way? Like,
100% true. 100% true. You have to take care of yourself. And it goes back to living that balanced life too. And sometimes in our balanced life, we have to tell people no, because it's protecting our own mental health. But absolutely, I agree with that.
So I got to do something for this, for you saying, you got to learn to say no. I love it, because that is the biggest weakness of many educators, including myself, is you often say no to everyone else, or you say no or yes to everyone else and then no to yourself. And then it comes back to haunt you. And then we kind of get in a situation where we can't actually help anyone. So that's why I wanted to have you on the podcast, because I think this is so crucial. And, you're doing this, teaching full time, having kids, and, you're making it work. And not only are you doing this, but you're inspiring people like myself to, keep this too.